Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 6th Board of Education meeting, and welcome to the new school year. I hope that all the students, teachers, and staff had a great first day, and wishing everyone a successful school year, and most importantly, a happy, safe, and healthy school year. We'd like to take a moment to offer our condolences to Dr. Capuano, whose mother passed away. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Capuano family. Also, just want to say we're aware there may be some technical difficulties for those at home. We're aware and we're working on it. Okay, so first item is
How are you working on
the technical difficulties at home.
it? Yes.
Call on Bill Bloom.
Bill Bloom?
Go ahead.
Also, we should be advised to
Feed out. We're sending the feed out. The feed's going out correctly. It's going through the platform. It appears slightly choppy when at times, not all the time, for feed at home.
Okay. Regarding our announcement at the last meeting of appointing Dr. Valenti, Superintendent, I'd like to further explain the process in which the Board of Ed came to that decision. Last year, when the prior board interviewed candidates for the interim superintendent position, candidates presented us with their goals and plans for Eastchester. The previous board unanimously selected Dr. Valenti based on his plans as well as his impeccable reputation and a 40-year record of outstanding success and results. He has served as superintendent in Harrison, Blindbrook, Smithtown, and Valley Stream, and more recently has served as consultant in Tuxedo, Westbury, Putnam Northern Boces, and Greenburgh, analyzing these districts and improving their deficiencies. And as we mentioned during our last meeting, Dr. Valenti also teaches courses on how to be an effective school superintendent. We initially planned on hiring a search firm and interviewed several search firms over the summer. After thoroughly assessing our district, Dr. Valenti presented us with a multi-year improvement plan. There are some larger problems in our district that cannot be addressed in only 1 year. Dr. Valenti offered to stay beyond his initial 1-year interim contract to implement the necessary changes and see his plan through. We had two options. Option one, spend upwards of $30,000 or more to hire a search firm. The PTAs and other stakeholders would have met with the search firm to give their input, and the community would have filled out surveys on qualities they would like to see in a superintendent. To be clear, the Board of Ed is the only board. Excuse me, sir. You cannot call out like that. Oh, no, you cannot call out that way. If you're going to call out, then you cannot stay. To be clear, the Board of Education is the only board who would interview and select a candidate. This process would take months. The candidate that the Board of Education selected would then analyze our district, come up with a plan, and we would hope that he or she would ultimately deliver on that plan. Or option two, we could hire our current interim superintendent, who one, was already extensively vetted and improved by our prior board, two, already spent the entire summer thoroughly analyzing our district and identifying various deficiencies, three, presented us with a multi-year plan, and 4 has already begun delivering on that plan. As many of you may have seen in... You cannot interrupt. Please leave.
Thank you. Thank you. Walk. Take a walk. I'm sorry, just as a reminder.
As many of you may have seen in the news, many other school districts are currently looking for superintendents. In fact, in a recent article from LOHUD, Ken Mitchell, a search consultant who Eastchester has used in past superintendent searches and who this board interviewed over the summer, was quoted as follows: "Some boards may want to get a new superintendent, but it's hard to get a good one. Districts are getting far fewer applicants for superintendents than they did pre-pandemic, meaning some districts will wind up with less prepared candidates. To be clear, there is no requirement that the Board of Education hire an outside consultant or engage in an extensive search process. To the contrary, given the anticipated lack of an experienced pool of candidates, many school districts have foregone the search process. For example, rather than conduct a full search, Blindbrook recently hired an internal candidate for superintendent. Dr. Valenti receives numerous job offers every year, either to lead and improve districts or to train and teach aspiring superintendents. As a board, we did not believe it was efficient to spend over $30,000 of the district's money to ask a search firm to find us another Dr. Valenti, which is exactly what board members asked for when we met with the search consultants. We did not want to risk losing the actual Dr. Valenti to other districts seeking an experienced superintendent. Instead, we unanimously decided that it was in the best interest of this district to have him lead for 3 years so that he could continue to execute his multi-year plan for improving the many deficiencies in our district. And Dr. Valenti and the board both felt that it was important to start the school year off with permanency and stability. Some of you may ask, what deficiencies? Our district has been using outdated literacy curriculum for years, including missing a critical phonics and writing program. Dr. Valenti immediately implemented a phonics program, and Fontes and Pinnell and Hegarty's are now being implemented this September. Prior to Dr. Valenti coming aboard, the original plan was to pilot new literacy programs this year and implement them the following year, the 2023 to 2024 school year. But Dr. Valenti immediately expedited the process and gave our students an entire year of much-needed improved literacy curriculum. Over the past 2 years, the amount of 8th graders going to private schools instead of our high school has increased from 3% to 13%, an alarming trend for our high school. Included in Dr. Valenti's multi-year plan, improving our high school guidance department, implementing the writing revolution, and beginning foreign language in the 6th grade instead of 7th, and much more. Over the course of the last 2 months, Dr. Valenti not only began implementing curriculum updates, but also reopened the track, extended the fence to 6 feet in order to better secure the track, hired a second SRO in order to give the elementary schools the same level of security as the middle school and high school, and aligned our 3 elementary schools on policies and curriculum. Administrators have commended Dr. Valenti for implementing innovative ideas, including, among other things, hosting a joint retreat for administrators and the Board of Ed, and welcoming all new faculty by introducing each of them to the community at the August 23rd meeting, both firsts for Eastchester. To speak bluntly, our district has a history of paralysis by analysis, and our students have paid the price for inaction. Many members of this board ran on a platform for change, and we have great confidence that Dr. Valenti is the man to make that change. The community elects Board of Ed trustees to make important decisions, including hiring a superintendent. And to be clear, we take that responsibility very seriously. Although we certainly value community input, we felt that in this instance, decisive action was in the best interest of our district, the students, and entire community. And we have the utmost confidence that our decision will be validated over the next 3 years as we support Dr. Valenti to do what he does best, make our district be the best that it can be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we are up to board committee reports. I'm sorry. Before we do that, Jackie has a statement, and there may be some other board members who have statements. Sorry, Jackie.
Thank you. I'll make this brief. As Chrissy mentioned, there has been a lot of feedback provided to the board. We appreciate the open communication, but part of our partnership includes sharing thoughts based on facts. I would like to address the erroneous statements that are being made about me regarding comments I made at the June 8th, 2021 Board of Education meeting. I invite everyone to view my comments at the 1 hour and 31-minute mark. I, along with 3 other individuals, were elected to the board on May 18th, 2021, and these comments were made after that date on June 8th, 2021. I identify myself as a trustee-elect in the first sentence. At that meeting, I was expressing that we, the newly elected trustees, be part of the decision to renew a superintendent contract, a decision that was pushed through in the time period after we were elected, but before we were all sworn in. I was not suggesting direct community input from individual families through surveys and other sources. That being said, I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to clarify the mistruths being spread in an attempt to defame my integrity as a trustee.
Any other board members?
I just want to say a few things on the process myself. None of the feedback that the board has gotten has anything to do with Dr. Valenti as a person, his experience, or, what he came here to do and what we intend him to do. It all had to do with the process. The fact that the announcement was made the last week of the summertime before people were really paying attention to schools, what's going on. And personally, well, let me give you my take of the way things transpired. And we hired Dr. Valenti to come here and to set us up to win, okay? We've had promises in the past by every superintendent we've had, all administrators, everybody wants to do what's best and take us to the next level, but we haven't gotten there yet. And why is that? I don't have that answer. If I had that answer, I'd be not doing this, I'd be making a lot of money doing something else. But the fact of the matter is we haven't gotten there yet. And when we interviewed Dr. Valenti last spring, the board at that time, 8 members, 2 of which are no longer here, unanimously selected Dr. Valenti, and we're convinced that he can take us to the next level. This board of 9 members, bringing it up to now 11 people in total, unanimously supported his appointment as the interim superintendent. He came here and his first words were, I'm not here as a placeholder, I'm going to do what has to be done. And he started doing that, and he started doing that over the summer. And it became clear and evident that there was so much more that he can do, but he wasn't going to be able to do it as an interim superintendent. It was going to take longer, and ultimately he's going to have to hand this off to someone who's going to be our permanent superintendent. And he came to us and he offered to stay longer than the 1 year to accomplish what we want him to accomplish to do. I was thrilled with that. I was thrilled with that. And I'm not speaking for anyone else, but I think everyone else was thrilled with that decision. But they're free to comment on their own. So with that, we had to check with our attorney. Could we do something like this? And the attorney said, yeah, you could do something like that. You're totally, as Chrissy said, you're totally empowered to do it. The board decides who the superintendent, how it is, how long it is. But to keep him longer than that 1 year and to give him the full force that he needs to bring us change and to bring us to that next level, he needed the title of superintendent, not interim superintendent. And in order to do that, to sign a contract, New York State law requires you that it has to be a minimum of 3 years. So that's why Dr. Valenti was appointed to a 3-year contract, and we executed that contract. Personally, I would have liked to have seen us make an announcement at our August meeting and entertain comments from the public, and then most likely vote on his contract at our September meeting, but that didn't happen. It did the way it is. I'm fine with the outcome. I'm fine with the direction we're going. I think this was the best thing for Eastchester, and I think down the road, we are going to take this district together to the next level. I'm really convinced of that, and I stand by this decision. As I said, the process from the outside could be perceived as not being the same as it's been in the past, but I assure you that when Dr. Valenti is ready to hand this district off to the next superintendent, that process will be followed. So that's where I'm coming from. And as I said at the last meeting, when we met with the search firms and they asked us what type of superintendent we wanted, my opinion was, I want him, like in my cousin Vinny with the lawyer, and this is the guy I want. So thank you.
I'll echo many of the comments that Vito made. My voice carries. You know, I think it's a little bit, there's premise for the deliberations of how we reach the point to decide to extend Dr. Valenti a permanent position as opposed to an interim position, that should be in public session, and it is unfortunate that we didn't do a better job of doing it that way. But ultimately, I don't think it would have changed the outcome. Every single one of us, as you said in your statement, unanimously agreed that hiring Dr. Valenti for this position was in the best interests of this school district. And so that's where I stand. It is, like I said, regrettable that people felt that it was not transparent or, you know, other kind of communications we received. But I assure you that, you know, a survey, a focus group, we had focus groups already scheduled, you know, and when the opportunity to pursue this approach came about, there was no question that this was the right answer for the district. So, you know, I will say I'm sorry that we didn't do a better job of that for my role in that. But I think the outcome you will see will be measurably visible. So.
Okay, sorry. Now we are going to board committee reports. And it is the second reading of policy number 3100. I'm sorry, that's right. It is the first reading. First reading, okay. So, Jackie, since you're the chair, can you please discuss the purpose of this policy?
Okay, policy 3100, Superintendent of Schools. So this policy is not on the agenda to justify our appointment of Dr. Valenti. It is on the agenda particularly for the last paragraph, which I will read and then I will explain. In emergency matters, the superintendent is authorized by the board to act at his or her discretion, subject to subsequent approval by the board, especially with respect to personnel appointments during the months of July and August. So this is enabling Dr. Valenti to make appointments and hires during the summer months when the board does not meet regularly, instead of having to call a special meeting or put it off until there is a scheduled meeting. So this just gives him the authority to make those appointments and to not hold them up.
Reading. Okay. Christie? Okay, do we have a second? Christine? Okay, all in favor?
No,
Oh,
discussion.
sorry.
I have a minor edit I want to make to it. Okay? In the last line, in the last paragraph, okay, and I'm sorry, I apologize for not having caught this sooner, but I don't think this is going to be a problem. In emergency matters, the superintendent is authorized by the board to act at his or her discretion, subject to subsequent approval by the board, okay? I think we need to add the words "with notice" so that the approval is not granted such that the board doesn't know it's being done. And I understand the intent is that we don't have to meet to approve it, and we're giving him the authority to do it. But if he's doing it, he should have to notify us. We don't have to meet, we don't have to do anything else on it. So I think just by adding the words "with notice" somewhere in that line, I always go back to diagrammic sentences, and I don't particularly know where it belongs in this sentence to be diagrammed. But I think the word "with notice" should be in there. That's what I'm saying. And I don't think that's a problem. I'm thinking with description subject to prior notice and subsequent approval by the board, something like that, and that would make it okay.
Yeah, I have no problem.
I mean, you do that, you told us that on every appointment you were
Yeah,
making.
because the
So-
standard practice, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that any individual I would recommend to begin with would have gone through our normal selection process. And that includes my requirement that I see at least 2 finalists at my level, oftentimes with the presence of assistant superintendents. So I would send out the resume and the information necessary to the board. That's how I would interpret "with notice," and indicate that we're offering John the position because we don't want to lose him to another district.
And
Okay?
that's how we've done it, so I don't see any problem with
Well,
adding
I
that.
just want to be sure we're doing it correctly.
Oh, yeah.
With the board policy authorizing it.
That's why we're,
Right.
that's why
So
we're
if
making
you've
the
done it
change.
before, it's a good past practice, but I think
now it's authorized.
now it's policy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the business office will not be able to say, not that they would, but they have the obligation to bring up, do we have the authority to pay this individual? Which is a very important question. So if they know the superintendent is acting with board authority, then that becomes a moot question. So with notice is fine.
Okay, so whoever could figure out where to put that, What?
If you look higher up in the statements, it says it.
So if you refer to the
Right.
paragraph, it refers to "with notice."
Yes.
Paragraph.
Where? I don't want to read the whole thing, I'm just skimming it right now.
Yeah, it doesn't use the term, but the intention, the above paragraphs.
Which paragraph?
Well, you've got the superintendent attends all meetings of the board and participates in all deliberations. The superintendent advises the board in policy developments and general planning. And then the next paragraph, the superintendent provides data and information to the board. I mean, the essence and characteristics of what you want is already embodied in the policy.
Right, but we're giving the express power to hire without prior board approval at a meeting. And there should be a notice regarding the hire. All that other stuff has nothing to do. We're adding that last paragraph to codify his power.
Well, it says that the superintendent's accountable to the board at all times.
Superintendent,
The superintendent shall be accountable at all times to the board.
which line?
That's the last line,
Of which paragraph?
the last line.
Superintendent shall be, yeah, he's accountable,
And that's his authority, and that's
but
the
you're not
authority.
giving him power to assign without you knowing that he's hiring somebody.
It's redundant.
Okay.
you know.
All right, so
He's okay with
are we
notice.
okay
So
voting
just-
for adding with notice?
Yeah,
Okay,
put
all right,
notice.
all in favor? Okay,
got it.
great.
Like I say, I would have brought that up sooner, but I didn't get around to it. I'm very sorry.
All right, so next on the agenda. Okay. Another board committee report is the Community Relations Committee. I'd like to just announce a board initiative that we'll be doing this year as part of our Community Relations Committee. We think it's important for community members to be able to engage in dialogue, not just to come to meetings to make statements, and then the board doesn't respond. It's often really not the best forum. And we feel that there needs to be a forum for parents to have an opportunity to engage in conversation, and for parents to be able to ask questions and express concerns and share ideas. Also, some of our high school students have come to our meetings to speak, but again, we'd like to be able to engage in dialogue with them, not just listen to their statements. So we're going to be having some coffee and conversations with the board, and of course, administrators are welcome as well. And most of our board members have children in the schools, we're parents too, so board members will be there to engage with the parents. The dates will be emailed and on our website, but if you want to mark your calendars, October 3rd, there will be a meeting with the high school students, October 18th for the high school parents, October 20th for Waverly, November 7th for the middle school, November 21st for Greenvale, and December 5th for Ann Hutch. And all meetings will be from 7 to 8 p.m. So more information will be available on the website soon. Okay, and now we are up to the superintendent's report.
Okay, you didn't want to do the health services policy?
Tonight it's
good.
not on the agenda.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you, Madam President. I'm going to take the podium and share a PowerPoint.
Is this going here?
Testing, good. This evening, I'd like to address 5 items as expeditiously as possible, but to bring the entire community up to what has happened, what's happening now, and what you can anticipate in the future. And you can see the 5 items there. We'll be talking, again, school security, paramount importance. I'd like to address academic outcomes. A new item, career, college, and counseling services. Question was asked, where did you find the money for the SRO? We'd like to share that with the community. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, an update on where we're at. So, in terms of strengthening school security, we did have our police chief and 2 lieutenants address the entire staff, 550 of them, at the opening superintendent's conference day. And the purpose of that was a 1.5-hour literal workshop on how to anticipate threat assessments in our schools. It went over very well. The chief presented well, had footage from national workshops he and his team had attended. And the response from the faculty overall was very favorable on 2 counts. Number 1, thank you, Board of Education and district, for placing security as your number 1 priority, because the safety is not only attributable to our children, but also to our staff, and their safety is equivalent, and they appreciated that. What emerged from that workshop was a couple of questions from the audience of teachers who asked, well, what about vulnerabilities in my building? Without getting specific. I know of certain vulnerabilities, a back door that's not locked, or certain areas of the fields that may not be as safe as we would like it to be. So at that point, we authorized that our Director of Security, John Kugler, together with our SRO officers, would tour each of our schools with the building principal, head custodian, and any other individuals who has a stake in the security of each building, because each school is different, is unique, and we want to identify what those vulnerabilities may or may not be. So we thought that was a net plus in terms of moving forward on that. Which is what I just said. John and his SRO will take care of doing that. As of today, September 6th, we have the first month schedule for our SRO at the elementary schools. We don't want to publicly state what times that will occur for obvious reasons. But we do want to say that each day, the SRO will spend approximately 2.5 hours at each of the 3 elementaries on a rotational basis. When there are special events, the SRO therefore will spend additional time at that particular school where the event is occurring. So suffice it to say that each of the 3 elementaries will have a certain amount of coverage on a regular basis, in addition to our normal security staff. Also, I want to make note that our Director of Security, John Kugler, will be the major liaison between the chief and the SRO offices, and will be monitoring their work and their response to needs that we have going forward. So at this point, we're quite pleased with the direction that we're going in. Let me say a few words about academic outcomes, and I would like at every public meeting to talk about academics and to highlight what we're doing. I had mentioned briefly curriculum mapping, and I want to raise that issue again because we are working very hard to get that up on the website as soon as possible. I've made the point before that if I'm a new parent to Eastchester and I have 2 or 3 children, 1 elementary, 1 middle, 1 high, and I want to know what's happening at each of those organizational or grade levels, I should be able immediately to go online, access that particular grade level, and begin to know what's happening in English, math, science, social studies, and the related fields, art, music, etc. We're not at the elective point yet, but working with Scott, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are working right now with grades 6 through 12 and looking for deliverables in the near term. Is that right, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. So that is happening, and as soon as it's up and viewable, we'll let the community know that, right? A few words about literacy. Questions were raised, well, what are we doing differently, et cetera. What we're trying to do, quite frankly, is accelerate the timeline. I believe in pilots, I believe in experimentation, I have a doctorate in it, but the bottom line is at some point you're going to have to make a decision, and you're not always going to have 100% of the information that you would like. Sometimes you have to operate on 65, 70% of the information. Sometimes you have to operate on evidence that's out there in other districts. Sometimes you must operate on the science that exists and the best programs that you can find. And so we're doing that right now. As of today, we're asking that literacy blocks be placed into each of our elementary schools, 120 minutes at the K1 and 2 level, and then 90 minutes at the 3, 4, and 5 levels. And those blocks have component parts ranging from phonemic awareness, phonological work, guided reading, independent reading, and times come to each of those components. So it's important to do two things. Number one, to have a structure. The science of reading is built on structure. What children need is structure, particularly at the earliest elementary levels. With few exceptions, children need phonics in order to be able to read. The notion of guessing, which has been part of reading programs, in some cases called balanced literacy, the notion of trying to interpret from a picture what the word is, or vice versa, while it may work in some instances, is not universally accepted now as the proper path. So having these literacy blocks focusing on the science of reading in grades pre-K, literally now, K1 and 2, children are in the process of learning how to read, and then beyond that, they're reading to learn. So that's an important distinction. It doesn't always exist in every instance, but it's a good generic to have. As far as the core literacy program, we've accelerated that timeline now to November 23rd. Originally, we were a little bit later on in the year in terms of doing that. We'd like to announce by Thanksgiving in November what that program is going to be going forward. I think I've mentioned before Heged's phonemic awareness. We're currently doing that at our lower elementary levels in particular. So we had accelerated that timeline for implementation this September, and that will be a springboard to the other elements of the core literacy program that I mentioned. This is important. It was mentioned last time we met by Scott, and I want to reiterate it again, that all of our classroom libraries will be upgraded so that we can build into next year's budget necessary materials that we may find are wanting on or before our December evaluation. As we noted the last time that we met, it's very important to look at our libraries for independent reading. One of the major factors for students' literacy is premised on the fact that there must be independent reading, not simply guided reading or small group reading, but they must be reading independently, not only within their interest area, but as well at their appropriate level of development. Let me say a few words about the 6-day cycle. Back in the summer, we had the 6-day cycle for 2 out of 3 elementary schools. The natural question is, why not Waverly? And the answer was, well, we didn't have a sufficient way to staff Waverly. Well, what staff do we need to sufficiently staff Waverly so they too could be on a 6-day cycle? Well, it'd be great if we had someone in the area of literacy who could pick up that extra assignment of a special. Now, first of all, what is a 6-day cycle versus a 5-day cycle? Well, we all know the 5-day cycle: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. What's the problem with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Well, inherently, when do most holidays occur? Monday. So if I have art every Monday, I could be missing a certain amount of art during the school year. What the 6-day cycle does is it adjusts so that you don't lose any of your subjects, all of which are important. Art, music is important, as well as, obviously, literacy, math, etc. So the 6-day cycle has the merit of allowing us to have all subject areas over the course of an academic year without necessarily losing particular subjects at particular times. What it does do then is it creates a need for specials that need to be filled. And so we said, let's address the Waverly problem by taking a hard look at our federal funds. One of the things we need to talk about is how we use federal money. Are we using it, A, for children, and are we using it for children academically speaking? So working with Scott and Greg, I think was part of this, and Lee. We don't do anything without Lee. She's the finance person. We found that we were able to reallocate some funds. Is that right? And we were able to hire an individual at Waverly who is now manning that 6-day cycle. What I would like to do is to invite them to next meeting and ask the principal, assistant principal, and a few of their teachers to come and talk to us. Well, what's happening at Waverly K1 and what's happening in the literacy area and what books are the children reading and how are they spending their time in that 6-day cycle? It might be very instructive to see it at the youngest levels. So stay tuned, we're going to do that. I have to let Dr. Laub know, but I'm sure he'll be delighted. If he's watching tonight, he knows. Okay, let's talk about something entirely new that I would like to see happen here as soon as we can. There really are two ways of approaching writing. One is the old-fashioned penmanship, and that's important, okay? We don't want children writing inscrutably. We would like to try and give them basic mechanics so that even in this age of electronics, they do have a certain command of print and legible writing, okay? That's one phase of writing. What I'm really talking about with the Writing Revolution, which is an evidence-based program, it's a K-12 program, is to begin to get students to think about ways of writing in different genres. So number one, you start with a sentence, okay? The boy met the girl, okay? Subject, verb, object. You want to start at a very basic level, okay? John walked to the track. And then as you evolve in simple sentences, you begin to move into paragraphs as you move up the grade levels, and then you begin to move into essays. But all of it is built on methodologies that allow for students to think through, how do I elaborate on my writing? How do I get beyond the subject, the verb, and the object, and begin to use occasionally an adjective or an adverb? Or as you were trying earlier, Vito, trying to find a way to put in that with due notice or proper notice. And really, it does get back to some of the structure I talked about earlier. Parsing a sentence is a very important thing, so you know the internal mechanics of what makes for a logical sentence, and then how do I begin to use words and language to elaborate on meaning. So using the genres of writing and the mechanics and the methodologies, TWR can be, and I've worked with it in different districts, a very successful mechanism for making it happen. So we'll be spending time on that. Okay, I think that does the academic piece. Now let me talk to you about something entirely new. I attended a very good meeting last week with the K-12 guidance counselors, some administrators, and, well, our middle school principal and our secondary assistants, and Scott was there as well. And we spent 2.5 hours talking about certain concerns and what are some potential remedies. So here's the first concern. I think our president alluded to it earlier. In terms of 8th to 9th grade migration, we did a 3-year analysis. And if you look at 2020, 3% of our 8th graders moving up did not go to Eastchester High School, okay? 22 students that year did apply to private school. The actual number who attended were 9. And we had an 8th grade enrollment of 285. So using that as a denominator, we found that 3% did not attend. Now, that's a fairly normal number because there are reasons why children want to go to and why parents want children to go to private school. In 21, notice that number ratcheted up. It more than doubled, 7%. One could argue it's still within the statistical norm and is not an outlier. What really concerned us is when we looked at the current 9th grade coming from 8th grade. And one could argue, oh, that's an outlier. It only happens once every 100 years. We don't know that, okay? It happened in this particular year, most recently. And not becoming an alarmist, that should raise a certain level of concern, just from a statistical point of view. Why did 32 students choose to not go to Eastchester High School, okay? And that involves exit interviewing. That involves analysis of what private schools are now doing for incentives. They're using scholarships a lot more freely. They're trying to attract the best and the brightest. And I don't blame them. They're competitive. They're in a competitive market. And they're looking for students as well as everyone else is. We happen to provide a free education, which is really a scholarship for every child. Not that it's for nothing, taxes are paying for it, but the point is, why are parents, more parents than we would like, quite frankly, looking to place their children in a private or parochial school? Beyond the scope of the normal reasons, I want a religious education, I want a different environment, et cetera. So I'd like to make a couple of recommendations. I think with a K-12 guidance department and with a 6 to 12 focus on counseling, career, and college, we ought to take another look at a position Eastchester once had called Director of K-12 Services. Unfortunately, that position was not successful for whatever reasons. Let history decide that. But it was not filled after that particular year that you had created it. I think you were smart in creating it. I think it's unfortunate we did not continue it. I think it deserves another hard look. And I think part of the solution in terms of more effective counseling, college, and career, as well as comprehensive and systematically doing it, lies in the fact of having someone who manages that particular department. We talked about examining PSAT, SAT, and ACT testing grades 7 to 12. And what is our obligation as a public school system to try and support our students who need some of these tests to be competitive for college, okay? My experience in other districts is that this is an equity issue to some degree. And by equity, I mean not every family can afford to send their children to private tutoring. I've worked in districts very different than Eastchester and Blindbrook and Harrison, which are well endowed. When you get to Greenberg and Westbury, they're not well endowed. So there it becomes a more pronounced equity issue. But I think anywhere you go, be it Blindbrook or Eastchester or Harrison, there could be families who may not be able to afford this. And if there's an opportunity for the public school system to integrate these types of courses or workshops, however you want to reference them, either within the school day or outside the scope of the school day, to assist students with these particular tests is something we should minimally examine. Now, colleges are on record as saying, well, we're not looking at testing that much anymore. We're looking at a holistic view of students. And that's fine, but I don't know if it's necessarily true. What I mean to say is that you look at transcripts, and there are differences in transcripts across high schools. An A in one high school is not necessarily an A in another high school. And college counselors and deans know that. And so they keep asking the question, well, is there some metric that cuts across all high schools, all transcripts? And you're right back to the SAT and ACT. So I think they peek at them, they take a look at them. They may not acknowledge that they look at them as much as they do. I do think they look at essays. I do think they look at the interview. I think they look at a number of other variables, but I would not discount these tests in the result of students necessarily being most competitive for certain colleges. I just raised that question. I think this is a no-brainer if you're able to build it into your curriculum with minimal additional cost. Right now we have 3 languages, grades 7 and 8, and the question is, we have a middle school with a grade 6, and is there a way of integrating global language into a middle school level? A lot of middle schools have done this in a cafeteria style, whereas an incoming 6th grader, I may have certain number of weeks, let's say it's 10 weeks of French, then I do 10 weeks of Italian, then I do 10 weeks of Spanish, and maybe 10 weeks of some other multicultural or repeating one of the languages that I'd like to take. But it really is a cafeteria or a tasting, if you will, of different languages, and then making a legitimate decision on which language I would like to pursue in grade 7 and beyond. So this is something the middle school principal certainly endorses, and the guidance counselors felt very good about it. Now, I don't know if you're familiar or not, but New York State has changed certain regulations with respect to comprehensive counseling plans as of 2020. They've put in place certain regulations, some of which are very good, and we ought to implement, as they say, as soon as possible. They actually call for an advisory council that is comprised of certain board members, or select board members at the president's direction, certain community members, some students, parents. They would like to see this advisory group meet. I believe it's at least once per semester, perhaps 4 times per year. What is it? 2. Once per semester, to take a broad view of how effective is our college career counseling program, what are our strengths, what are areas that we should take a look at. So again, we want to implement that, and we would like to have all the components of that system. It really is a shift from individual counseling to a comprehensive approach to counseling and how you address multiple student needs across the spectrum. All the more reason for a director who would be managing that. Now, this is something we've implemented in many other districts, and our guidance counselors, I thought, reacted favorably, didn't you? The question is, an incoming 9th grader. I'm a parent of an incoming 9th grader. Is there a plan between 9th and 12th grade? I'm not going to write it in stone, but if this particular student has a proclivity for moving in a certain area, has been performing well, is accelerated, are there certain courses that I move into 10th, 11th, 12th grade that I should be taking a hard look at? Can you build me a schedule that for the most part is going to address the constants, and is going to show me a path? I would like to wind up taking X number of APs, or I would like to take definitely AP Calculus, A, B, and BC. Is there room in my schedule going forward? And if I want to get to that endpoint, what do I need to do now? Well, what should I have done in 8th grade, quite frankly, with algebra? So this really becomes not just a high school effort, but at least start there, and then begin to take the middle school, and how do I build someone up so that they're there? accelerated programs, perhaps in 7th and 8th grade, leading to algebra, earth science, and/or some of the other options, but a 4-year plan. Now, in fairness, the council has said, well, gee, that's a great idea, but we need time, and we reviewed how they were spending some of their time, and we'll be having conversations with some of our assistant superintendents on how we might be able to readjust their workload and give them the time they need for something of this nature. It impacts all students. No matter where you are on the spectrum, you should have a 4-year plan, period. Okay, so here's the answer to your question. And Lee and I worked on this. Where did we find $161,000 in change in the current general fund budget in order to provide for the SRO for our 3 elementaries? In personnel, there is a phrase that we use, it's called breakage. It's the difference between an outgoing staff member and an incoming hire, and what amount of money constitutes the delta. So after you build a budget, you guys voted on a budget at the end of May. If a teacher says, gee, I've had it, I'm retiring, I want to go to Florida, some of the audience perhaps, that teacher may be a veteran who's making $130,000, or make it $120, make it less, all right? Well, if that teacher leaves after you've adopted the budget, you've budgeted that teacher for what, 120, right? I hope so. And you hire a very competent person, but is not a veteran, and you hire that person, let's say at 80,000. Well, the delta is the 40,000, okay? And that has a multiplier if you have a number of people who separate during that period, okay? So that is an area to look for money. Okay? I'm not saying it's going to be a lot of money. I'm not saying you fund new programs with it. But when you're looking for a particular program that you think is important enough, that's one place to look. Okay? And we teach people in school finance how to do that. It's not rocket scientistry, but it is something that if you build a budget correctly, those monies should be there. All right? Then there's a term called resource allocation. That means I may have targeted monies for a certain area, and I don't need all of those monies. So, for example, I have a carting service, cart garbage away, and I budgeted for $160,000, and we find out that we're able to do it for $145,000. All right, now, that money, $15,000 is lying there. It's not bad to have money lying around. You may need it at a certain point. Well, if you needed it for this particular project, that, with other monies, could be reallocated to a new purpose. So that's the second area you look for. And then, you know, there is breakage in contracts in general, be they with BOCES, be they with other groups, where you find that your savings, simply because you're not ordering as much as you thought you needed of a particular product, or in some cases you're not using as many days as you had anticipated. So that's the generic breakdown of where we found the money. It was going through many different lines in the budget. Did you want to add anything to this, Lee, in terms of how we got to this point?
No, it was just an analysis what the actuals were looking like as we started the school year.
Okay. So I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but people were somewhat mystified. Where did this money? It didn't come from heaven. We found it in the budget, but there are legitimate ways to do that. So let me talk a little bit about diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and give an update, because some residents have raised the question, where are we, what are we doing, and what are we planning for this year? I'd say peer tutoring has become part of a number of our school-based SMART goals in each school, where the committee from last year did make recommendations along these lines as being one of the approaches that they asked the district to look at for the new school year. And particularly at the middle school level, the middle school principal spoke to this at our administrative workshop, and there was some interest at the high school level. So in following up on those last year recommendations, it should come as no surprise that the district has invested money in Panorama, which is a group out of Boston, Massachusetts, and they help districts nationally survey staff, students, and parents. Where are you at? Okay. Fundamentally, it's looking at social, emotional learning, and it's looking at issues of motivation, issues of excitement with education, happiness with your profession. So it cuts across many areas, satisfaction of parents with school, and those surveys are currently in the process of being developed, and we anticipate administering them beginning in the fall semester. Is that right? Electronically, first to staff, then electronically we'll move to our students, and then to parents. Eventually, during the course of the year. Waverly has instituted a PBI program. It means Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports, and that is a evidence-based program, and that is one way of implementing social emotional learning and of trying to educate our youngsters toward a respect of the different groups and the climate that is best for respecting all groups. And when you look through the DEI lens, there are many different ways of looking through that lens. I raised one earlier. It was the economic lens. So this is not just a racial ethnic thing. DEI is multi-layered, all right? It could be economic. It could be in many different ways. If we didn't give our kindergartners and first graders that 6-day cycle, that could have been a violation of DEI, the equity issue. Why not the youngest children enjoying what grades 2 to 5 are enjoying? So when you look through these lenses, don't see it only in one perspective. It's multi-perspective. At Ann Hutch and Greenvale, the principals have developed a SMART goal in terms of evaluating their current curriculum, SEL, called Second Step. They want to look at their student disciplinary data, how do students behave, attendance issues, etc. They want to look at their panorama results and use those as metrics in terms of planning going forward. I think that might be it. Yep. Do I have anything else in the box, Bill? Did you say anything else? Laurie? That's it. So that's the report. I don't know if there are any questions from the board on any of these items, or, and I know the public will have a chance later, but are there any additions from the assistant superintendents that you want to elaborate on? Okay, so very good. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Valenti.
Thank you.
Okay. We are now up to comments from the public on agenda items only. So just to be clear, if there's any comments on the track or on Dr. Valenti's appointment, those are not on the agenda this evening. So any comments from the public on agenda items?
My name is Janet Harrison, and I live at 90 Park Drive. My comment is in relationship to an agenda item of DEI. Not surprised that I saw nothing that I didn't see last year. Not surprised that there's no mention of race. that there's no mention of LGBTQ, no mention of equity and inclusion in terms of how we talk about those groups, how we show and administer learning through history, through curriculum. There is zero there. SEL is not diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI is specifically focused on making kids who are of different races, of different genders, of different sexualities feel welcome and to tell their stories in a very broad perspective and to integrate it into the school system. There was nothing in that that said anything remotely like that. But I'm not surprised because let's be very clear, with the majority of this board has made clear that DEI is of no interest, okay? We have it on tape that it's somehow affecting how people look at white kids and that we don't want to shame white people and that DEI is a threat. And actually it's CRT, right? Critical race theory. That's all on video, folks, all from several members of this board. To see this DEI is just another slap in the face. It's really clear there's absolutely no interest from this board in addressing what kids who are not part of the mainstream, who are not part of the mainstream white culture, who do live in Eastchester and deserve the same education that white kids are getting in relationship to history, in relationship to stories, in relationship to people, including teachers. How many? My kids don't have a teacher of color this year. 2 students, no teachers of color. That has been the entire thing, the entire time they've been in Eastchester, except for one principal, Dr. Stinchcomb. So to see this is a nothing burger. This means nothing to me. I don't expect it to change. So I'm not gonna fight for this. But the idea that there's really any interest in DEI is a joke. An absolute joke. And you know what? It's always funny to, yeah. So anyway, I'm just gonna be really clear about that. Doctor, I won't mention names, but just be clear, I expect nothing different. Excuse me, you have a problem? My time is up. I know, Chrissy, my time is up. But as stated, I didn't expect anything differently.
Okay, just to be clear, DEI is not on the consent agenda tonight. That was part of the superintendent's report. So if there are any more comments about DEI, they will have to be at the end. Okay, so we're going to the consent agenda now. It's only on consent agenda items. So if it's the consent agenda is approval of minutes. Well, can you give me a?
I'll tell you my topics and you tell me.
Okay.
One of them is
No, that's later.
later. All right, maybe I should just wait for later.
Yes, thank you.
Later's going to be quick.
Yes, it's coming. We just have to do this consent agenda. Okay, so can I have a motion to move the consent agenda? Okay, Vito. Do we have?
I move the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second. Okay, thank you, Matt. Any discussion on the consent agenda items? I don't think so. Okay, all in favor? All right. So, future meeting dates, September 20th, October 11th, and October 25th. And now, I believe, right, we are up to comments from the public, all comments from the public. So, before, that was it. That was just our consent agenda. Okay, so before we do that, just a reminder, there is a 3-minute time limit. Please sign in first, state your name and address. And also our board policy 1230, states that Public comments must be addressed to the entire board as a body and not any specific board member or district staff member, and comments must be civil and respectful. Okay, any comments from the public?
So my name is Kristen Versace. I want to talk about just three things. I'm trying to 3 minutes. My reaction to Dr. Valenti being appointed for 3 years was not about Dr. Valenti. I don't know you at all, and I always assume the best of everybody. I believe that you could very well be wonderful, and based on what Chrissy said, it sounds like you very well may be wonderful. My only comment is that we weren't included in any of this. And therefore, what we got from our perspective was an email, and suddenly, oh, by the way, the person who we thought was just interim is now 3 years. And there was no email before that that said, hey, we're in this situation. We think this is the best thing to do. This is why. If you have any opinions, you have 2 weeks to email us, or maybe a meeting, or maybe a Zoom meeting. There was nothing. So it really came off very jarring to people who were not on the board that this occurred without any communication with us. So when you guys ran, I watched every single Meet the Candidates for 2 board elections in a row, and the predominant theme was your desire to be more involved in important decisions, and that was about the pandemic. But these decisions are important now too. So what I'm asking for you in the future is just to remember what you felt like before you were on the board, your desire to be included and to be communicated with about important decisions, so that when this happens again, you'll remember to include us. That's number one. Number two. Curriculum change. We get an email that says curriculum is being moved from this one to this one. I don't know what either of them are, but I'll just be completely honest with you. This is a board that's composed of 8 new people out of 9, and I did listen to the Meet the Candidates Day, and I heard someone say something questioning about a book in the library. I heard another person saying, I think school should just be reading, writing, and arithmetic. And so I don't know, frankly, when I see an email that says the curriculum is changing from this to this, I don't know what that means. I don't know if something's being removed from the curriculum that maybe I do want my kids to learn. So I just feel that I would like more information about, when you're changing the curriculum, what is being removed, if anything, that's substantive, to put my mind at ease. And then thirdly, the resource allocation and the contract breakage. It wasn't told to us what exact resource was taken away in order to put the money to something else. And the same for the contract breakage. You gave us these ideas like in principle, but I have 25 seconds left. That's amazing. You gave us these 3 categories of ways to find money in principle, but you didn't say what resource did you remove or what contract did you kind of take from in order to get the money to the other place. And I would like to know. That's it. Thank you.
No, you are correct. That was generic. I didn't name a particular teacher or administrator or staff member who resigned simply because we're in public. No one would. But the only way you get specific is by saying Jack Smith left at $120,000, Joan Jones was hired at $80,000. Exactly. Well, it was personnel breakage. That was the title. But I would say this, if you want to come in and speak to me and Lee privately, I'd be happy to get more specific. Yeah, I'm simply saying nothing was taken away. We're in the business of by addition, not by subtraction. So we hired competent people to replace a veteran. You can't necessarily hire a veteran, okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be happy to explain those too.
Yeah, it'd be great. Instead of explaining it to us privately, just send it out. It's good that you found one. Everyone wants security, right? I think we go and say, we want safety of our kids. It's a great idea to put in place. But in any type of situation, someplace else. You know where it came from, just send it out, that's all.
Not with names, but like.
I don't care about the personnel break. People
I think if you would like to make an appointment with Dr. Valenti to
Sure,
ask
be
him those
happy to.
specific questions, please call
Sure.
the office and make an appointment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention all the techniques. There is revenue. I didn't even bring up the revenue option. There are ways of increasing your revenue or money that you find that you didn't know you were going to get. That's another source that comes in that allows you a little bit of flexibility. It's really like running your home budget, okay? In your home budget, you're going to have a certain amount of money left over, hopefully, that you're able to reallocate. But I'd be happy to meet with anybody privately, and Lee would too.
I'm sorry, it's not a dialogue. It's you get up and make a statement. If you have more questions, you can make an appointment with Dr. Valenti. Okay, the next public comment, please. Thank you.
Hi, yes. My name is Bonnie McKellar. I live at 132 Park Avenue, and I am a mom of 3 kids, 2 of whom graduated from Eastchester High, and 1 who is currently a junior. We have had kids in this district since 2005, when my oldest son entered Waverly. I know you've all presented your reasons tonight for hiring Dr. Valenti. I'm sure that Dr. Valenti is qualified, and I realize this is kind of a done deal at this point, but this is the first time I've ever spoken to the school board because I'm very upset about this. We have been through a terrible last 2 to 3 years. This district has been so divided, so contentious. The Board of Education meetings have been so terrible. And what we needed this time around was to follow the normal process that this district has always followed in hiring such an important person. We followed this process when we hired Dr. Moran, who was an internal candidate, but he still followed the process, and he turned out to be wonderful. We followed this process when we hired Dr. Glass, who I think was essentially driven out of this district. Because it's been so contentious in the last 2 years in this district, it was very important that we would have followed a normal process and involved the community and solicited input and buy-in. I am also an educator myself, and I serve on hiring committees at my university, and I've completed our mandated training on best practices in hiring educators. The reason searches for top administrators are done according to a formal and open process is to ensure buy-in from the community, taxpayers, parents, and school staff. After these past few years, we need to build trust again, and we need to have a board who listens to us, which is what you guys said you were going to do when you ran. So that is why I just want to make this comment. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Katie Pizzeri. I live at 30 Dorchester Road. My 3 children attend in Hutchin Waverly. And I wanted to first, as Chrissy said earlier, just say that I hope that everyone had a great first day back to school today. The students, families, teachers. My family's really looking forward to what's lying ahead this year, and I hope you all are too. I really felt compelled to speak tonight to really just share my appreciation for the school board and the challenging decisions that we as community members have entrusted you guys to make on our behalf. I do believe in the democratic process. I came out to vote on Election Day for many of you that are here, and I do feel that you have the best interests of our children and community at heart. And I do believe that you'll all work together to make smart decisions to help to move our district forward. I know that many of you right now are forgoing bedtime stories with your kids, first day jitters talks, to be here for our community. So I just wanted to express my appreciation for that. For all of those reasons, I do appreciate the decision that you made to hire Dr. Valenti. I think tonight, hearing him speak really speaks for itself, as does his expertise. He's already working with the board and the administration and staff to make some significant changes. As an aside, in my professional life, not in education, I would love the opportunity to vet someone for a 2-month working interview. So I think that that has really been able to show us what Dr. Valenti can do. I also wanted to point out that the decision was made unanimously amongst all of the board members here. So, I think that everyone was able to voice their opinion on hiring Dr. Valenti. We've heard a lot about all of the superintendent vacancies across Westchester, Putnam, Rockland counties. So we know that this is a tough job and it's very contentious, but someone has to do it. And I think that we've really seized the opportunity to hire in Dr. Valenti. Fiscal responsibility is important. The board has saved, money in $30,000 or upwards of that for a search consultant. It can be put towards other uses, as Dr. Valenti was talking about, but curriculum improvements, technology, security, the list goes on and on. In a nutshell, I think that you guys hired an extremely experienced candidate who had time to prove their worth and saved the district money in the process. And that makes sense to me. I feel like I had plenty of input in making that decision by taking the time to research who I voted for and getting out to vote, and that has been the outcome. So I hope everyone here can give this board and Dr. Valenti the support and opportunity and grace to show what you all can do this year and in the years ahead for our schools and our children. Thank you.
That was great. I'm Carmelina Iasillo. I just wanted, on a more positive note, to thank the new school board and Dr. Valenti for all their hard work, time, dedication, passion, and selflessness in carrying out their duties for the district. It's reassuring to see how synergistic the school board and Dr. Valenti have been in already transforming Eastchester to a district better than it was before. With that being said, the majority of this town has spoken to the election of the new school board, which to my recollection was pretty significant, which means that we stand behind and we support the decisions of the school board. So I just want you to know that a majority of this town does support you and have faith in the decision, like the appointment of Dr. Valenti. We all know that he's highly qualified, so I just wanted to let Dr. Valenti know that you are so impressive. I've never seen a superintendent come up here and speak to us like you have. So it's just a really good feeling knowing that you're permanent and you're gonna, I feel like you're gonna make such great change for this town. And I guess that's pretty much it. And I understand the process seems frustrating because I remember not too long ago when essentially the old school board members were technically fired by the town of by the parents of Eastchester and the community, and they took it upon themselves to move up a decision to extend Dr. Glass's term a year early when it really should have been the new school board's decision to do. So I understand when process doesn't seem fair. That didn't seem fair to us that time, that we kind of didn't get that, weren't involved in that decision. But with that being said, thank you for all your hard work, Dr. Valenti. We welcome you with open arms, and thank you for all that you've done so far.
Thank you.
Hi, Rob Krakowski. I live on Forbes Boulevard. First, I'd just like to say, after 2 years of historic elections where the voter turnout was clearly high from everything I've heard. I haven't been in the town that long, but I think it's clear and safe to say that the board fully understands and knows what the community wants after going through what we've gone through for the last 2 years. So that I'd like to thank the board for all the work that you guys have been doing this summer and the initiatives that you've started, and most importantly with hiring a superintendent in Dr. Valenti with a proven track record of success and results, not from a Midwest school, but from school districts in our backyard as well as Long Island. I think it's clear for people who complain or don't like about that process that the board acted quickly. That's what we elected the board to do. And clearly those individuals have never been part of professionally or personally a situation where you had to hire top talent quickly and in a competitive job market and make a decision. And that's what we empowered the board to do, and you guys did that. So thank you. And then lastly, I just want to thank Dr. Valenti for choosing Eastchester. It's clear that you had multiple options to select from, and you chose to work with us, and I look forward to the continued success that you hopefully bring this district. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Huber, and I live on Lakeview Avenue. I'm not going to comment on the board's decision because I think that, well, I will make one comment. I think that, yes, the board was elected. Nobody is questioning legally whether or not you had the ability to hire Dr. Valenti. I think that you missed a strategic opportunity to bring unity to this district. Because even though a lot of people voted for those new members, remember, a lot of people also did not. And this was the opportunity for you guys to show that what you said during the campaign, and I watched it all, what you said about transparency, the last 2 elections, about more parental input, that could have been given to us if you had waited for a month or 2 and not done it in August. The decision would have been the same, except that you lost the opportunity to get buy-in from even those that did not vote for you, to earn, for us to trust you and your decisions. But you didn't give us that. And I am disappointed in Dr. Valenti only because someone as experienced as he is should have known that a good leader needs buy-in from all the stakeholders in the community. And he should have advised you of that. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And now I'm going to say what I actually wanted to say. At the last meeting, it was mentioned that the board was discussing having separate sections of the library for MS and high school so that the younger students would not have access to certain books. I would like to know how far along in the discussion is the board on this issue, whether and when this will be implemented, and who will decide which books to segregate from the younger students. I would also like to know whether the board is planning to have a process in place that would allow parents to grant access to their middle school child if they so wish. I ask these questions because there is a national movement to ban books. And there have been cases where books have been pulled off the shelves in school libraries across the country without the school administrators following proper procedures. Many of the books that have been targeted deal with gender identity, LGBTQ, racism, and subject matter, racism and religion, with parents claiming that the subject matter is inappropriate or offensive. One such book, 33 Snowfish, was available in our library here in Eastchester as of June 22nd. But as of this week, the book is no longer available. Was the book pulled for review during the summer following proper process? I know our district has a published procedure for parents to request a book review, and I would hope that the board and the new superintendent will offer assurances that these procedures are being followed. Thank you, and I'm sorry I went over.
My name is Michael Fortuno. I wanted to welcome all the new board members and Dr. Valenti. You do have my full support, but beyond that, for people like myself who did support you and vote for you, and for those who didn't, I want to say that we live in a very data-driven world now. So why don't we take the next 3 years to see how this, if and how the schools improve, and I think that would actually bring true unity for those who say they practice that and believe in it and want to see unity in the town and the children do better. If the proof is in the pudding in 3 years, then there's nothing to fight about, no decisions to look back on. If it's not, you respect the democratic process and you vote the way you want in 3 years. Just want to come up and express my support for all of you and for Dr. Valenti. And on behalf of all of our children, whether their parents voted for you or not, we wish you all the best. Looking forward to the next few years with you all. Thank you.
Good evening. Thomas Keller, 281 Garth Road. My subject matter is a little different than what's transpired tonight. Very disappointed in use of the track. Take you back to the summer of '21. We're getting into August, September. people that walk with me at night, oh, they're going to open the track back up to 10 o'clock like it used to be. Well, custodians came out at 8:15 and locked up. So a number of us individually called Superintendent Glass and said, well, what's going on? Oh, there was destruction on the track, there were scooters, bicycles, there was drugs, and this and that from the prior summer. So I said, what about security? Oh, we can't afford security. Bronxville has security, and Bronxville doesn't have lights. And when it gets dark, you have to leave the track. If you don't leave the track, they call the police, and you could get summons. But Eastchester has lights. So we said, well, how about a compromise? Instead of 10 o'clock, how about 9 o'clock? There are people that work in the city out in Long Island. My son works out in Long Island. He can't get back in time to use it. So it's closed at 8:15. Then, I'm going to say around November or so, the new rules were posted. A joke in the morning, 7 to 7:30, can't park in the parking lot. Half an hour? 6:45 to 8 at night. Again, we suggested, how about 9 o'clock? How about 6:45 to 9? Weekends? No weekends. The only time you can use the track on the weekends if you were part of Eastchester Youth Soccer that had a permit for the field. And even then, you were not supposed to go on there unless there was a child, a grandchild, or someone like that who was playing. And that's only good in the spring and the fall. Wintertime came, there's no soccer. So, okay, there's elections in May. 4 new people are elected to the board. I understand all supported opening up the track. And by the way, let me go back to January. After Christmas vacation in January of '22, the north lights were out. 2 light poles are both out. And the 2 other ones by the stands and by the scoreboard, there was only 1 light and it was facing the building. So it was very dark from January to, I guess, June or so. Was it a conspiracy? The lights all of a sudden went out after Christmas vacation? I don't know. It seemed that way. So then the pilot program, July 11 to August 21, many more people were using the track, and you had to sign in, and security was going to pass this on to the board. Now I understand you close at dusk. We're getting into less and less light.
I'm sorry, sir. Please wrap up. The time is out.
And you have soccer games going on, 4:30 to 6:30. Pretty soon, there'll be no light for adults to walk on the track. And I'm told that we can't have people walk on the track because somebody could fall, and the lighting is not good enough. The lighting is very good. And some of you people ought to go out there at 8 or 9 o'clock and walk around. You don't even need a flashlight. You don't even need your cell phone because now the lights were fixed. What's going to happen on the weekends? Is it going to be prohibited like last year? One of the facilities person told one of the people that walks with me, go to Scarsdale and go to Bronxville. Bronxville doesn't have lights. I don't know about Scarsdale. Very disappointing. Open up the track, please, for adults that walk on the track. Thank you.
Chris Johnson, 14 Innisfree Place. First, I just want to thank the board for all their effort. I know they're doing things not as it always was. I know you had a retreat with the educators where it was very productive, so we're doing things that are making a difference. I want to welcome Dr. Valente. I'm going to make this very simple. When you're a football coach and Tom Brady walks into your office, you stop looking for a quarterback. Every good organization needs leadership to accomplish mission success, and that leader has to lead from the front. It's refreshing to see that. I watched the last board meeting. And obviously, I'm here today. Dr. Valente, I liked how you conducted the meeting. I liked how you conducted yourself. You seem natural. You're not scripted. You're obviously a seasoned professional. You're authentic, common sense, and I like your data analysis approach that you discussed last meeting. I like that you're bringing accountability and standards. I want to remind everybody, it's the parents' job to teach our children self-confidence, help them navigate the world, show them how to deal with certain situations. It's the school's job to educate our kids in subjects, using standards and expecting performance with transparency, and I'm starting to see that. So I like this. It's very refreshing. Dr. Valente, welcome to Eastchester, sir.
Hello, Renee Howell, Dante Avenue. I wanted to thank you for showing the data, although it was concerning, about people leaving the school district. I think we should probably look at it across all levels. It's another vote, if you will, of the school district. And I hope we don't assume what we know the reasons were. I think, Dr. Valente, you said that we need to figure out what the reasons are. I don't think it's that the schools are offering scholarships to the students. I think we need to look really deep and hard at that. You mentioned at the last meeting you wanted to turn Eastchester into, the caliber of Bronxville and Blindbrook and Scarsdale. So one thing that's very apparent about all those communities is their collaboration, their always, great ability to take community input, and a very transparent community. These are very transparent communities. So while you talked about a lot of important things this evening, you didn't talk about the culture of the school district. And that's one thing that I think we'd like to see a plan for. I'd also encourage you to watch some of the school board meetings from last year's students who came up, did a lot of research, were extremely prepared, even though sometimes the board members suggested they shouldn't be. So there's a lot of good education going on here, and I hope we recognize that. So I really hope we look into those numbers and understand why people are leaving the school district. Thank you.
Good evening. I had no intention of speaking this evening, none. But to address your point, I'm Danielle D'Ambrosio. I live at 4 D'Ambrosio Way. I have a daughter who goes to a private school. She's in high school. And to address the reason why, it's the rigor, the lack of it. But with you, what I've been hearing has been everything that I've always wanted for a school. I wanted the AP courses. I wanted the push. I wanted the bar to be high. I wanted the opportunities for all students. And I feel with you at the helm and the board together, we can do that. And I'm a parent who pays taxes, who pays tuition, and will now reconsider sending my daughter here because of who you have in charge, because of the board. And I thank you for that. I truly thank you for that. As an educator for 29 years, I am a public school teacher. I value public school. I also value opportunities for students. And if I think that a district is going to offer opportunities for all students, academically, athletically, as far as emotionally, then I'm all in. And right now, I feel like just hearing the board, hearing Dr. Valente talk, I'm all in. So thank you.
Hi, Allison Pincus, 38 Forbes. I literally am just going to mimic what she says, but from a pre-K level. So my son is currently, oh, sorry, I'm usually very loud. My son is in pre-K. He goes to a private pre-K. I searched high and low, called probably 30 different schools just for pre-K to find a school that would teach my child to read, write, and be friends with his classmates. I found 2 in all of Westchester and Connecticut, drivable Connecticut. I am thrilled beyond belief that I might not have to search for kindergarten. I am thrilled beyond belief that you are focusing all your effort to make this school district the best for all students, regardless of race, gender, or any other thing, because they are all children, they are all looking to learn, they are all hungry for education, and you are giving them an education. There are not separate buildings for separate kids. They're all in the same building, getting the same education, the same opportunities. And I am thrilled that you are focusing on just making the entire district better for every student here. So I'm looking forward to watching for the next year to see if my son will be coming to Waverly. So thank you.
Just wanted to introduce a teacher who's here when we get a minute.
Yes, I think we're done with public comments.
We're done?
Yeah, I think we're done with public comment, so Dr. Valenti?
Yes, would Dorothy Carpenito please stand up? Dorothy? We'd like to welcome Dorothy to our faculty this evening. We have appointed her as an instructional coach. Is that correct, Dorothy? Okay, and we're just delighted to have you join us. Would you like to come to the microphone and say a few words, and we'll give you the same courtesy. Listen, teachers are best when you put them on the spot. They really respond excellently. Watch. Go ahead, Dorothy. Tell us what you do.
I'm thrilled to be here this evening. It's a pleasure to join the Eastchester School District. I've had a wonderful opportunity to join this district. I'm so excited to be at Waverly. I'm actually going to be assisting in the implementation of the 6-day cycle, which I have a lot of knowledge about. I have 2 young children in elementary school myself. Actually, my son's, as of today, is in middle school, so I just really look forward to joining this community. I love everything that's being said here tonight, and I'm just honored to be here. So I'm very excited to join the staff at Waverly, and I look forward to meeting parents and more students this week. It was a wonderful day today, so thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Matt. Do I have a second? Michelle? Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you, everyone. Good night.